In La'Kesh and Veritas, everyone, sending you the frequencies of oneness and truth. You are now tuned into Of the Sun Suncast, our weekly podcast, bringing you elevated topics that are focused on expanding ourselves and humanity into becoming the truth and moving ourselves into oneness. So we're coming live all the way from One Mind. I am Tavars of the Sun, quantum light property clearing instructor. We have La'Kesh of the Sun, the architect of the Sun, and Jessica of the Sun, an ally and advocate for Of the Sun. So happy today in La'Kesh and Veritas.
In La'Kesh and Veritas.
In La'Kesh and Veritas.
Yes, yes. And today's topic, we are calling forth correction. The frequency of correction. Jessica's with it. And this is to rectify and bring ourselves into rightness and in alignment and congruency with the truth. So this is something major that has been brought forth, or more so to the forefront, because the correction frequency has been around for quite some time, also known as in La'Kesh, but this has been brought to the forefront due to necessity. And we're going to dive deep today and explore some experiences, essentially the foundational ideas of why call forth correction, what's the necessity, what are some of the benefits, and also share some real life experiences of what calling forth correction can do for ourselves and humanity as a whole. So La'Kesh, would you like to kind of touch on this idea of correction with us today?
Absolutely. The idea to summons forth or call forth the frequency of correction is truly calling forth the essence of in La'Kesh. In La'Kesh and correction are synonymous. In La'Kesh originally was a Mayan expression that said, a greeting, that when you would meet someone, you would say, I see the divinity that is in me, in you. And this oneness has grown into this understanding of a solution to the world's problems, this idea of recognizing the need to be one, and in the oneness releasing the suffering that we all have because we feel separate from oneness. It is of the Sun universe, which is who we are. It is our partner. It is our soulmate. It is a love affair of oneness and call for correction, a call to truth. It is the solution to releasing the suffering within us individually as well as collectively. So this experience of in La'Kesh has, as all things should, evolved into a greater, more significant understanding. And as we have been, it has, so to say, been in our field, but we have not brought it forward in its fullness for the correction. So this show today is really to talk about, are you willing to correct yourself? And once you correct yourself internally, then your external world corrects. And when your external world corrects, the world corrects. And that this starts with each soul, with your willingness. So in La'Kesh truly brings us this message of truth, of the infinite possibilities. The infinite possibilities of integrating with our own divinity in oneness, which is the truth of creation. So this idea dematerializes separation. Separation is the source of all suffering, all pain. And this idea of correction is a solution.
Yes, thank you, La'Kesh. As you were speaking, I was thinking of the moment that this concept was brought back to the forefront. And it was your monthly self-healing class, the recent one, Water, Part 8. And if you haven't tuned into it, we definitely encourage, check it out. We have it archived on the Of the Sun website under the monthly self-healing class tab, evolutionary classes. So for those who were not there were a number of communications from the consciousness of other life forms on our planet, such as the trees, the bees, the sun, and how many of these life forms are suffering. And they are suffering because of the actions of humanity. And this idea of us not operating correctly with what we are divinely connected or innately connected to, which is all of life around us. So this idea of correction or calling forth correction as a larger idea, but starting with what's in front of us, was presented. So myself personally, I hit the ground running. And the following day, I actually like to share my experience
Go
with
right ahead. Yeah.
this idea of correction and the power in it. So the following day, I decided to incorporate it into my practices, and I sat and I just continued to call forth correction. I call forth correction. I call forth correction. And as I was doing it, I could feel the receptivity of my cells. I could feel certain parts of my body moving into the idea of correction. And then what followed was the surprising part. And I could see how my consciousness was operating in the space of whatever's in front of me, I need to bring order to. I made a funny little example. It was so mundane, but it was so real. I was going into the refrigerator and there was something that wasn't placed properly, and I felt the urge, I have to correct this. I have to put this back in order. So a lot of these ideas and concepts that were presented in the talk, they are large. It's dealing with the planet and humanity and our relationship with all forms of life. But the important thing that was shared was to take this principle and start with what's in front of you. Start correcting the situations and the circumstances or the relationships or the money issues that we have that are incongruent or out of alignment. And I could see real time how just taking a few minutes of your day to call this forth, it ripples throughout the day, where there's again that pull to think correctly, emotionally operate correctly, and our actions to follow suit. So I have more on it, but I'll save a little for later. But that was one of the first experiences where I could see I just wanted to be correct, and as much as I could. And then along with that, I could see all the areas where I wasn't operating correctly, but the opportunity to do so.
And there should have been thoughts that arose within you that made you think, oh, let me look at this. Oh, let me look at that. This is subtle, but it is profound in its application. And I think that everyone who initiates this process, even for a day or so, will see their outer world reflect their inner changes.
Okay, so on that, I might as well share the rest because there were thoughts coming up. It's like, don't hoard the goods.
Go all the way. Just go all the way.
All right, so right after my practices, I had to file some type of insurance claim. So I'm high vibing, right? I'm buzzing, and the insurance claim agent places me on an abrupt, first off, I was being bounced around from person to person, and I'm like, whatever, it is what it is. This won't destroy my vibe or interrupt my flow. And then this person, I finally get to the right person, and then he put me on a hold without saying, please hold. And it was a very long hold. And I could see these thoughts surfacing of, oh no, what if something goes wrong? I could see all the wrong popping up, and then I'm watching it, and because I was calling forth correction, there was this part of me that I clearly identify that's not correct. If you want a certain outcome, but your thoughts, your output isn't aligned with that, you need to change that. So I immediately began to call forth correction again, and as I was calling forth that correction, I could feel that anxiety drop off of me. And then soon as it dropped off, the woman came back on the line saying, can you repeat that claim number? And then she was able to help me and give me everything that I needed, and everything turned out great. But I could see real time how, calling forth the correction allowed me to move myself back into the sense of congruency. And I saw the real time effects of in the external world, through what I was doing internally through calling forth correction.
That's fantastic. What about you, Jessica? Did you have anything?
Oh my, yes. That's funny. I had a similar story where I was trying to rebook a flight but I had to change the origin of the flight, and I had two different responses. Whenever I was congruent, a person came on from the UK and said, "Oh, I can help you. I can make that change for you, no problem." But whenever I was frustrated and angry at the situation that was happening, the person on the North American end, I called two different lines. One was in Europe, one was in the US. The person on the North American side or the US side was like, "Oh, that's not possible. That's not possible at all." And I noticed the contrast in the verbiage that they were saying. One person was telling me, when I was in a certain mindset, one person was telling me that's not possible at all. And it's that definitive response to me was like, whoa, so there's no option, right? But then whenever I hung up the phone and I said, I'm going to call the European line and I'm going to call for solutions, I'm going to correct myself. And I did. And sure enough, the person on that line said, "Oh, absolutely, no problem, I can help you." So that's piggybacking off of Tavars' story. I had a similar story. So I guess the moral of the story is anybody calling customer service lines, make sure you're in congruence. And there will be a friendly person on the other end to assist you.
And this really brings home the idea that everything is inside. Yes. Everything is internal and then it's external. Your health comes from the cells out, not from makeup in. Your happiness comes from the inside out and then influences into the world what you are inside. So this is an example of when you call for correction, the cellular matrix itself starts to revert back to its original divine form. And then there is no hiccup, there is no interference pattern, there is no resistance. The part of the experience that we have in the human experience is that we have been tricked by fear. And every time we have a moment or someone communicates to us or we accept the communication that something is wrong, we make it wrong. It then becomes wrong. We attach through our emotions. We put our energy motion towards something's wrong. And then we get to see our magic work. Mm-hmm. We make things where there's no, like you said, there was no option. It's like, that's an absolutely no, don't talk to me no more. That's an end of discussion. Hang up the phone, get off my line. I can't do anything for you. But that is because we think something's wrong and then we make something wrong and then we lock ourselves in and throw away the key. So it's quite interesting. The solution of calling for correction begins at the cellular level. The cells become congruent and happy and back to their original form, and then everything is forward motion. The stoppage, the blockages, the resistance is what we do with our energy in our motion or our emotions. Does that make sense to you all?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's a humbling experience when you can see how much power you're working with or just how connected everything is we truly do extend to the field outside of us. I was extending to that person on the other line and the situation as a whole. And I got to see it. Jessica got to see it real time, and we got to see the flip-flop between our thoughts until we
transcended geographies with that flip-flop. Yeah.
and there is that. This also really affects our interrelationships too. This idea of correctness implies and means, in fact, like a stand up straight. Let me say what I mean. Let me do what I say. Let me make sure that every place I place my foot is in order, and logical and reasonable. But most of us have been a little more slack than that in all things, in our choices of friends and lovers and our choices of jobs. The reason we do things are often motivated through fear or guilt or laziness. And this is not correct. So we can only make the cake from the ingredients that we have chosen.
Mm.
So that if the cake ends up a little not edible, it doesn't taste real good, we have to look at what ingredients did we bake the cake with? Everything has consciousness. Everything exists in us and then in the outer world. So this idea of correction, this concept we're talking about today, is a state of correction. It is calling for the frequency to be in the state of correction. It is seeing that what is outside of us is inside of us. The confusion, the resistance, the doubt, the closing the door, you can't go any further, that's inside. But you're the creator of that, so you can make it outside.
Mm.
So you're always in charge. Things are always a frequency match. Your fighting, your anger, your fear, your resistance is what you're up against at the same level of power that you have it at. How determined are you to fight? That's how much determination is in the fight that you're in.
I got another experience of correction associated with some of the examples you gave. Correction regarding our relationships and jobs and things like that, and operating out of order. So I was reached out to by an old friend of mine who wanted to commission me to do some artwork. And the truth is, my plate is full. But in the past, I have had this tendency to, okay, say yes, and it would be out of appeasement or feeling bad about saying no and what someone else would think of me. And that's totally incorrect. That's not operating right. So again, this is a day where I'm calling forth correction like a madman. And so it's all up in my field. And the moment I saw this, and I called forth correction again, and I reassessed it. And the response that I was able to type to this person, it was so elevated. And it was something along the lines of, look, I'd love to, however, it's just not working out. My plate's full. And it would be an injustice for me to try to help you when I can't give my full attention to it. Now, that's something that usually I wouldn't do. I would be like, all right, I'll try to help you, and then overwhelm myself. But this calling forth correction, it allowed me to position myself at a higher vibratory pitch, where the response that I got back from this person was, oh, no worries, but thank you so much for even considering it. I'll look elsewhere, and it was done with. Versus, again, in the past, I would have taken on some experience and put myself in the rut where I'm overwhelmed and I'm not able to perform correctly through this type of incongruency or feeling guilty. But again, the power of correction, it allowed me to alleviate all that. And it was just a balanced experience.
Also, to complete the request and the response. Often what we do is we leave the door open because we feel guilty, or we want to do more, even though we don't want to do more. And we want to be perceived a certain way, or our ego wants to have an experience. And so even when you say, well, maybe I'll get back to you later, you have not completed the transaction. You haven't answered the request. And so it's still lingering energetically in your field, waiting for you to pull the trigger, which is a pull of your energy. So it doesn't allow you to be impeccable with your energy.
I definitely saw that come up. And there was this urge of the ego and feeling a little guilty of, oh, well, maybe you can just hit me up if you need some insight or something. And then I backspace, delete. I was like, no, don't send that. Correct yourself, operate correctly, because that's not what you want. You cannot get involved with this. It wouldn't be good for any of you. So again, just speaking on that, it is a thing. And again, correction can help overcome that impulse.
And that's an impulse towards pain and suffering. That's a saboteur move. Like, I'll let someone else entice me into something where there's nothing but pain and suffering at the end of it.
We've all been down that road before we became correction woke, right?
Correction woke, I love it.
That's going to be the new hashtag, everybody, that you'll start seeing on our social media. It'll be correction woke, because when you get correction woke, it's like, you're like, not slipping back into the old ways.
That's right.
It's so interesting how we have, this is not new. We are so much bigger than our experience in our lifetimes now. And all of our loop patterns and all of our tendencies towards sabotage and our fears are of long standing, and they're hard held, and they're through generations. They're in our ancestors, they're in our DNA, they're in our past lives. And so these loop patterns, we have to determine, which we can, that we can break the loop pattern, the sphere of the gravitational pull that keeps pulling us back into a cycle we saw our mothers were in, we see our sisters are in, we see our fathers were in, and we know our other ancestors have been through before, where there's just more pain and suffering, and it's needless. It doesn't have to happen. And all of it truly is based on fear of what they think about us, fear of what they don't think about us, fear of whether we're missing an opportunity, fear of whether what we have in our hand is better than what they have in the bush. All of this is about fear, and this is the trick that humanity is in. Is the trick of fear, that what's far off, there's no danger in the moment, but it's the imagined danger of the future. That what if I don't say yes and they promote someone else? Or what if I don't say yes, if I don't do what they want, they'll give someone else the job? What if I don't say yes, then he'll get another girlfriend? All of this is reason to call for correction, so that you can stand in the truth and the power and the congruency of what is right for you, and your cellular structure will back you up. The energy of life itself will allow you to live instead of to slowly die, which is what this idea represents. Calling for correction updates our information. It brings us, it's like you get a new phone and then you get a computer update. I'm sure both of you have the language of computers better than I.
Yes, get your correction firmware updated.
Antivirus.
Oh, we definitely need the antivirus.
Yes, we do.
Part of the correction package. The 2020 correction package, which is
correction firewall.
I actually think that would be a funny spoof ad, an Of the Sun bottle of correction.
Well, we actually do have in La'Kesh water, which is a bottle of correction frequency. We have the blankets, we have the rugs, and I think Tavars did have an experience, and I think you were also having, even in Germany, you have your in La'Kesh rug there, and you were on it. So I know that Tavars tried correction mentally, and then physically put his body on the crop circle that represents in La'Kesh, which is correction. What was that experience like?
It was expansive. I needed the salt bath afterwards. I'll put it like that. It is a noticeable difference when you call for it mentally versus working with the actual insignia or the symbol. The power that comes through is amplified and squared. So it works both ways, but again, it depends on how much are you looking to release. So one morning I got onto the 6-footer in La'Kesh correction rug, and it essentially felt like I had a soul clearing. There were, I walked up to Lalita and I said, I think I need a salt bath. I'm feeling like I'm releasing so much, like something's off, but not quite. I'm not sure what's going on. And she looks at me, she's like, whoo, there's stuff flying all out of your field. You need that salt bath. And
so that's a black salt bath right there.
Yes, 2 tablespoons with your 2 cups of Epsom salt. And, after taking the salt bath, I could feel myself my levels recalibrating and moving into balance in my field. But there was a massive release. I think I spent about 10 to 15 minutes on the rug, calling forth the correction, calling forth it mentally, regarding certain circumstances and experiences. Almost anything that I can think of that needed correction, I was calling it forth in those areas. And again, massive release. And after that salt bath, I just felt back to myself, and still with the frequencies of correction propelling me forward to be more of the truth.
This is very important, these concepts that have been brought up, this idea that Tavars was significantly enthusiastic. So this is a little above the normal range in which people are like, oh yeah, I'll do a meditation. He was like, I can't wait to do this meditation. So he received his correction at the same level of his request. So it was enthusiastically moved, all of the things that needed to be corrected. The distortions were removed. And so there was much in his field, because everything is inside, the darkness is inside and needs to be pushed outside. So when I looked at him, I could see that the field had, for all intent and purposes, shrapnel in it. Of course it didn't, but it had the idea that he was blowing up and moving through correction, and would need to neutralize that by being in something powerful, a powerful substance. And we have the DNA black lava salt that has the energy of the volcanic fires, which was exactly what was needed. And when he finished that experience, he had a much different appearance, and his presence was much more calmed down and much more unified. And all of this is really important, because the ideas of removing the distortion that we don't even know we have, the distortions that have been insinuated themselves into us on so many levels in this lifetime and others, through the DNA, through the lineage and the generations, and all of the many things and many people that you come in contact with. The idea of using your determination to stay in correction is very important. It is not necessary to call for the specific things that need correcting, but it does not hurt anything if you choose to. The correction frequency is conscious and intelligence, and it knows what the original programming or what the original cell's algorithm is. So when it gets to the cell, when you call it into the body and it gets to the cell, it recognizes distortion. Whether you've called it and pointed it towards your boyfriend or towards your job or towards your finances, it knows. And should you point it in that direction, it just gets there first. So you can do it that way, but the important thing to realize is that correction exists as a consciousness and can work on your behalf. And it works even better with your determination and enthusiasm and persistence and consistency. It can abate what is not correct, what is, and this language is really what it looks like to me, what is inflamed with negative, what is engorged with toxins. It can remove that and bring things back to the correct original design. This is not only a correction in the physical matter, but the physical matter also imprints the emotional palette. So it is an measure. Calling for correction is one of the many measures that can help us stand back from our emotions. As in both of your examples, that was negative emotion coming up. Oh, they're disrespecting me. Oh, they're not listening to me. Oh, they didn't tell me, they put me on hold. Oh, they're telling me no. And then up comes in you fight and anger and resistance, because that's what you just were talking to, anger, fight, and resistance, but you were talking to the anger, fight, and resistance and sabotage in yourself. So when you control the emotions in yourself, then the emotions back down and the opportunity for harmony and peace come forward. Do you all have anything that you'd like to share concerning that?
Yes. Sprinkled throughout this podcast has been this idea of it's all in you or within the individual. And to remember that, you mentioned something about this idea of the saboteur, because essentially these experiences that we've shared were all potential sabotage, where we in and of ourselves were the, how do you say, we're the actor, we're the writer, we're the saboteur, we're the victim.
I love that. Yeah, that's true.
We're on both sides inflicting this. And it's a powerful thing to remember that at any given time, we can correct it. We can, oh, look at me sabotaging myself. I'm the sabotager and I'm the one being sabotaged. So let me change the script. Let me choose to be a different actor within the movie.
Yeah, you're even the extras, like the people in the background yelling, "Get him!"
Yeah, it's all the individual.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so funny. I see this visual. We may have to do an animation of this. There's multiple duplicates of the same person.
Oh gosh, but Tavars and I have so many different ideas for like creative ways to socialize of the sun concepts. So stay tuned because you'll be seeing.
Almost definitely.
This process of calling or summoning the frequency and the consciousness of correction into your experience is a way to be integrative and in realigning your connectivity to oneness. And this is a sacred understanding. And I want to make sure that we have fun and elevate it, but also convey that elevation, fun, and joy are a part of the sacredness. Awakening our soul to the remembrance of our symbiotic relationship with all that is, with the trees and the grass and the flowers, the oneness of all living consciousness. In correctness, we can learn trustworthiness. So many of us feel that, we can't trust anyone, but do we often don't realize we may not be trustworthy. We may not love life enough ourselves to be counted on. And so it's a very interesting idea, but if we call and summons forth the consciousness of correction, we may then understand the oneness and the truth, and that resequences our understandings and our perceptions of our physical, mental, spiritual, emotional functionality. And then we can be trustworthy. Mm-hmm. We can be trusted. We won't have this idea that I can't trust anyone because we can't trust ourselves because we're the saboteur and the extras.
Exactly. It's madness. This is so empowering. I just must say, speaking on this idea, because I can see how there's so many people who go through that same experience where they feel like, oh, I can't trust anyone, and but not realizing that they are the ones who are extending the trust or the level or the amount of trust. So if they operate it correctly, they would know, okay, this is the amount of trust that I can give to this person so that, I'm not allowing or opening the door for sabotage, and again, it deals with operating correctly with yourself.
Well, if you choose the person to trust that is non-trustworthy, then you are calling for an experience of learning a lesson in not being able to be trusted yourself and not being able to trust, because it is all inside first and then outside. So every accusatory thing, everything that we deflect, someone says, you're not correct, and they deflect it back to you, it's really you deflecting it back to them. It's like every accusation you are guilty of. At some level, at some point, hidden, hard-held, this lifetime or in the lineage, so it's a very, understanding this is elevation, restoring equilibrium through understanding that everything operates inside out is really a major understanding, to shift into the vibration of ascendancy, to choose to defy separation, choose to defy the fact that we are not one. Jessica's in Germany, but we are one. Tavars is a male, but we are one. The trees are trees, but we are one. My leaves are just a little greener. This is very important to understand, because this is where safety lies, in our understandings of that we are living or riding around in a vehicle, but we are, and the vehicle is one with everything else on the planet, because everything on the planet is from the planet, except for a few of the spaceships that are coming in.
There is that.
The Pentagon did say that they weren't from here. But everything else is from here. So we are at many levels. It is literal. It is that we are literally one with the minerals and the things that are made on this planet. And it is also spiritual. So this is important for us to see.
So as you were speaking, I started thinking about the idea of how responsibility or accountability is within the correction. Mm-hmm. And there was something we used to say, which still holds truth, and I can see it even more today in this conversation, the idea of responsibility being within in La'Kesh.
Yes.
And to correct yourself or move into oneness is responsibility or accountability.
Yes.
It's I just wanted to note that is something that was sprouting in my consciousness.
That's part of your correction growing. Now that you see correction in all things, you can see the responsibility and the oneness in all things. The humans tend to deflect whatever is tossed in their field, instead of them looking at it and saying, oh, let me examine this and explore it. They're like, let me throw it back at you and deflect it. Like you say, I'm not being supportive. Well, you're not being supportive. How,
Yeah.
Oh, we've all had those arguments in the past. It's like, let's just repeat what each other are saying and keep digging a deeper hole,
Emotional tennis match.
Yes. That idea of deflecting does not resolve anything. It does not bring about whole responsibility. It doesn't bring about oneness. It is more of the problem, not less. Jessica, do you have anything else?
Oh goodness, do I? I could. I think I could write a separate book on this at this point, because I was recently finding myself a bit stuck with a couple of things, and I using this. I think what we realize is that when we're stuck, it's like you said, an illusion, and it's like a lot of people use being stuck as an excuse. Like, I'm stuck in a marriage, I'm stuck in a job, I'm stuck in this situation. You're actually not ever stuck. You're just using it as a reason to justify why you personally are not making the decision to move forward. And I think I've seen plenty of times in my life when you make a decision to move forward, you will, like, and that's what calling for correction is about. It's about like rectifying and righting yourself so you can move forward. Like, you can't drive through a square opening if you're driving a circle car. It's not congruence, right? Like, it just isn't that. You're not going to force it through. It's going to cause you some grief. But like, the best thing to do is just call for correction and change your shape.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm getting like sacred solids and geometry in my mind.
That's life. Life is geometry, mathematical, it's equations, and it's about putting forth the right equations.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And we've all heard that expression, the cliche, fitting a square peg into a round hole. But sometimes we really try to do this with ourselves. And we don't even know that we're doing it until we see what we're doing that's causing that to happen. So that's my input on that.
Well, I would like, before we end, to do a short meditation for our listening audience. And I'd encourage everyone to take a moment and get some water, and we'll do a short introduction to correction.
And if you don't mind, while we're taking a moment and gathering our water, I just want to give a plug and say, if you're enjoying this podcast, please, by all means, share it with your friends and family and loved ones and anyone else that you want to be correction woke.
Thank you, Jessica, for sharing that. And we're going to ask everyone, we have our water now. We're going to ask everyone to take a little water. The information travels on the waterways in the body. And we ask that you become meditative. This will be an introduction to the idea of in La'Kesh. This is the idea of bringing balance and tapping into a reservoir of information and intelligence that is already encoded within everyone who is here. So if you will take a deep breath. This is a call or a summons for correction. We are reminding all consciousness of the oneness that each one has been created from. Take a deep breath and call for the frequency of correction. And feel yourself move into the pattern of correction. Breathe again. This is a message of infinite possibilities, integrated by divine oneness. This message is to dematerialize separation. This message is to gather in harmony with truth, the interwoven light. This meditation is an introduction to the soul seeking greater expansion. The soul that is greeting and prepping for the next stage of evolution. This is the voice of correction. I am here to summons correction. I am here to move into global multiplication, spreading in La'Kesh into the consciousness of many, franchised by those in alignment with in La'Kesh, from state to state, country to country, continent to continent, ocean to ocean. In La'Kesh will rebuild the community, unify humanity, and interact with the consciousness of the children. Breathe. Call to summons the frequency of correction. Humanity's children shall identify and operate in truth. Breathe. They will be the navigators of reason, logic, and balance. Breathe. Shifting the outcomes of humanity's destiny. Call for the frequency of correction. Correction says, I am the power which you seek. I am you. Take a deep breath. Correction travels on the breath, on each molecule, oscillating in and out of the light. Call for this frequency of correction. Send the correction to the thoughts that are faulty, that are not aligned, that are complex and compartmentalized. Breathe. See the lightness of your situations so that you may be fearless. Breathe. Summons the frequency of correction into your beingness, into your field, into your consciousness. Summons the frequency of correction into your body. Into your emotional body. Into your mental body. Into your etheric body. And then breathe. Invite the frequency of correction in La'Kesh, oneness, to be you. Join and integrate into divine oneness. Call for the dematerialization of separation. Gather in the harmony with truth, interwoven in the light. Summons forward the frequency of correction. And now it is time for us to come back into our normal state of consciousness. Ready yourself to come back to your normal state of consciousness. Then be ready to be alert and ready to move forward in correction. In La'Kesh and Veritas. This is a meditation that you can play over again, or you can understand the idea and develop your own. You can sit on an In La'Kesh rug, or hold an In La'Kesh frequency water bottle, or think the idea of In La'Kesh, and then let us know how it goes for you. We would love to hear back from you.
Yes, we would.
I'm still floating in the correction meditation, like, oh. So for those who have interest in using the energetic support products that will aid you in going deeper into anchoring the frequency of correction into your field, we'll have some links in the description below. And we also encourage you, comment. Do you have any experiences with calling forth correction? any experiences with the energetic support products. Let's get that chat going. Jessica, you have any final thoughts?
I do, actually. I was just using some of the products this morning, and it's kind of like if you don't have them, you're like 50% of the way there. Like interacting with them really solidifies the whole process for you. It's incredibly helpful. So I would encourage everybody to definitely get energetic support products.
And I will share with you that this idea of frequency is not like allopathic medicine. Frequency is contagious. With frequency, you use it until you acquire the frequency. And sometimes it may take a few months, sometimes a little longer, sometimes less, however, depending on what's in your bandwidth. But most of us do not have in our bandwidth correction. So if you were to get in La'Kesh, which is oneness, which is also not often in a bandwidth, these are all things that you acquire, and then it makes room for you to then expand and elevate and evolve to other things. Most of us have the frequencies that we see on television, or that our parents have, or that the grocery store has. Those are the frequencies that we're aware of. And when you get a frequency item, it should be treated and revered as something that will make you greater, give you more, and help you evolve, and that you won't need to do it forever. However, the more hard-held and the more long-held a thought, it does take some time to erode it, but it is not as if it were blood pressure medicine where you take it, it never heals you, you take it till you die, which is really kind of incongruent.
And scary at the same time too. Yeah, very scary to have to be have your body be dependent on something your entire life. That's so
And
let's
so
avoid that.
Yeah, this is really a wonderful way of the truth. The whole universe is frequency. And if you're around people who have a frequency, you acquire theirs. If you're around products that have a frequency, you acquire that. How long it takes depends on how willing and committed you are to getting it. However, it is not necessary that you devote your life to it. So this is very much the way the universe is. Humanity is somewhat different than that. So we thank you for listening. We look forward to having our next podcast with you and hearing about your stories of correction. Thank you. In La'Kesh and Veritas.
In La'Kesh and Veritas.
In La'Kesh and Veritas.